about to listen to the Dr. Dahlia Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Dahlia Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Dahlia.
And we're back on the Dr. Dahlia Show. Welcome back. Glad to see you. I'd shake your hand, but apparently we don't shake hands anymore. COVID was 6 years ago. And I understand, we were doing things, trying to be more sanitary. But when I go to shake somebody's hand, because that's just second nature to me, I am seeing absolute shock on the other side. Unless, of course, they're Gen X, baby boomer, they're older. I think it's very appropriate to welcome somebody, shake their hand. And it's a different day, different age. In fact, one of my friends was interviewing a candidate, and the candidate fist bumped them. The candidate was younger because they thought that the handshake we don't do anymore because of COVID. 2026 for crying out loud. And so you aren't really seeing a lot of handshakes. I actually don't mind that because there's a lot of people with sweaty palms, warts, cuts. The handshake was never sanitary. So from a medical sanitary thing, I get it. But people are going to think you're rude. People are going to think it's interesting. I can't tell you how many younger patients, when it's telemedicine, I'm like, oh, hi, is this Johnny? Is this, they're like, oh, hi, Dahlia. I'm like, hi, yeah, I'm Dr. Wax. Nice to meet you. But they'll call me by my first name. They'll just call you by your first name. Now, I don't take offense to that because I don't have to be called doctor. I never had my patients call me doctor. They could call me by my first name. But I'm sure other doctors are like, you don't call me Bob or Trish. You call me Dr. Smith. So I could see why some doctors, I'm sure doctors don't like to be called by their first name. Somebody goes, hey, Dahlia, I don't mind it. But why are Gen Zs calling us by our first names? Well, because now that they're getting into trouble for saying Mr. or Mrs. See, when we were growing up, it was, Mr. Smith, Mrs. We never called anybody by their first name. The problem is now you get in trouble for misgendering. And you have to go through a conversation with them going, how would you like to be addressed? What are your pronouns? And a lot of the Gen Zs are like, well, that could tick somebody off. So instead, they're just like, hi, Dahlia. And I'm like, hi, you can call me Dr. Wax if you want. You can call me Dahlia. I am the physician here to help. And how can I help you? But going back to the handshake, not shaking somebody's hand. It's fascinating to me. Again, not the most sanitary. So I never like touching a sweaty palm. Somebody has cuts or warts or things like that. You can spread illness by hand shaking. But then how do you greet? So when my friend said that this young applicant just fist bumped him, he was like, okay, I'm not hiring this person. But I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Okay, you see what he's doing? He is trying to still connect. He knows that handshakes are starting to go out the window, which means he is aware and up to date. He understands that some people are now icked out by handshaking, but he is trying to still connect and touch you. Okay, that might actually be a great applicant. So I think we're looking at the Gen Zs and we're thinking, well, they're rude. They're calling us by our first name. They're not shaking our hands. They're also not making eye contact. Apparently, a lot of Gen Zs don't make eye contact. Now, why is that? Is it because they've been playing video games in somebody's basement? Or is it because they've gotten told that you can't do extended eye contact? Remember, with the Me Too movement, there were many employers and there were many guidelines in workplaces where you cannot make eye contact longer for 3 seconds. And eye contact for 3 seconds, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Yeah, that's kind of, I'd use Mississippi. Because Ohio or Maine, too quick. 1 Maine, 2 Maine, too quick. So if eye contact is going to be considered predatory, they're not going to do that either. They're going to greet you, look down. Another thing too is I grew up where you weren't supposed to stare down your parents. You weren't supposed to stare down at an adult. You weren't supposed to be like looking at them with you're like, oh hi, and then you look down again. That was just kind of you staring means you're trying to engage or you're trying to take somebody on. That it wasn't something that we were doing. So culturally, we're seeing some big changes. Now, on the other end, are Gen Z struggling from a communication standpoint? Well, apparently there are studies saying, yeah, that, many are not necessarily comfortable. They have more social anxiety. They say a third of Gen Zs born between 97 and 2012 admit that looking somebody in the eye is too nerve-wracking for them. That's a third of them. 75% say they struggle with social interactions. A survey of 2,000 teenagers found that 92% are more comfortable communicating online than they are in person. Yeah, another thing, too, this is being reported by Daily Mail, is you won't get a Gen Z to call you. They will not want to talk on the phone. They'll just want to text. Now, I find that a little difficult sometimes because there's a lot more you can say, like I'll call students or my nephews or whatever. And I'm like, look, it's easier. It's too hard to write. There's too much to write. I can't convey what I need to convey. Let me speak. And I've had missteps where what I texted got completely misconstrued because I couldn't back it up with the corollary statements and all that. So I like to talk. I do better talking, but the younger generation don't. They think they're going to make more mistakes. They think they're going to misgender. They think they're going to say something that's inappropriate and get themselves in trouble. So with a text, they could look at it, modify it, edit, proofread it, and send it, and it's safer. It's a much more calculated sort of form of communication these kids are doing. And it's not that they're being rude, it's they're being careful. And this is where we are today. I saw a patient, like I said the other day, I went to shake their hand and they looked shocked. And I was and I'm a hugger. I like to hug a lot. I always used to hug this way I didn't have to shake people's hands. But the handshake's going away, people. Eye contact's going away. And us older people are going to have to figure out how to adjust because it's weird. 1-877 Dr. Dolly, don't go away.
This is an urgent announcement for anyone that's $10,000 or more in debt. Before you make another minimum payment, you need to know there are special programs that can completely free you of your debt. Total Financial Freedom can help you become debt-free in months instead of years. Resolve your credit card debt, signature loans, department store cards, internet loans, and timeshares. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020 for a free consultation. For 16 years, Total Financial Freedom has helped thousands get out of debt. You can feel confident when calling because Total Financial Freedom is A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau. Battling for years and years stuck in the endless cycle of minimum payments could take decades. You have the right to get your debt resolved and substantially reduce your monthly payments. Call Total Financial Freedom now at 800-878-6020. That's 800-878-6020. 800-878-6020.
Let's face it, guys. We're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at Aftermath.media. Again, that's Aftermath.media.
And we're back in the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer. And big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Dahlia, Facebook, The Dr. Dahlia Show, and on YouTube, click like and subscribe. So it is National Infant Immunization Week. This serves as an important reminder for families to review their child's vaccinations, have proactive discussions with their pediatricians before focus starts to shift on summer plans, travel, and busy fall schedule. It's coming fast, guys. Here to break it all down is Dr. Michael Milopsky, practicing pediatrician, influencer, podcaster, with insights on why immunizations matter and how providers can help families navigate the recommended vaccine schedules with confidence. Dr. Milopsky, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to partner with GSK to talk about the benefits of childhood immunization.
Yeah, grateful for GSK and all they've done as well. So talk to us about the benefits of our vaccination protocol with children.
Well, no doubt you and your audience have likely been following the rising measles cases across the country. As at the beginning of April, according to the CDC, there have been over 1,700 confirmed cases of measles that have been reported. So this is a great example of how following the pediatric vaccine schedule can help protect children from potentially harmful vaccine-preventable diseases, things like measles and whooping cough. We've had a unified vaccine protocol in this country for about 30 years. It's estimated we prevented more than 500 million cases of illness and easily prevented a million childhood deaths. And diseases like diphtheria, polio, and rubella that used to be common, sometimes deadly or crippling, have decreased dramatically over the years. In fact, the vaccines have been so effective in protecting against these diseases that many patients and parents who I speak to now have never even heard of them.
Exactly. I had a family member who died of tetanus years ago, and so we're very, very grateful for those. And with polio, we never want to see that come back. So talk to us about how they protect our kids.
So the simplest way to think about vaccines is that they teach the immune system how to recognize and defend against a specific germ. They help build protection so your child's body is prepared before they're exposed to a certain disease. We all know that kids are exposed to thousands of germs a day through interacting with other kids, the surfaces they touch, the food they eat, the air they breathe. So when I talk to all my patients about how vaccines help, I talk to all my patients about how vaccines help strengthen their defenses against serious or even life-threatening vaccine-preventable illnesses.
Dr. Michael Milopsky practices at Pediatrics at the Meadows in Castle Rock. Love Castle Rock. I climbed it. Was really, really happy about that. It was even nice area, beautiful, beautiful area. My Colorado patients, I'm licensed in Colorado as well. And, I always get questions about, the vaccine safety. And I'm sure you have, been asked about that as well. Talk to you about, how you have these conversations with the parents and what you say.
Sure. I start out by reminding parents that the childhood immunization schedule is one of the most scrutinized and studied parts of our healthcare system. And that I reassure families that the vaccines are extensively studied for safety and efficacy, and they're continuously monitored. But like any medicine or any treatment, vaccines have side effects. For the vast majority of children, those side effects are mild, things like fever, body aches, fatigue, or some redness and soreness at the shot site. For most healthy children, the disease prevention benefits of vaccination far outweigh any potential side effects.
It is. It's true. We always have to outweigh the benefits. One thing we are struggling with now is many kids don't go to the doctor regularly. Many parents don't have the same pediatrician. They're using telemedicine. And so the biggest challenge I see is even if you have a family that does want to vaccinate, they're not keeping up with the schedule. How can parents prepare for their child's next doctor visit or ease that access?
Absolutely. So first, plenty of online resources. The Center for Disease Control and the American Academy of Pediatrics have an enormous amount of family-friendly, evidence-based resources parents can access. Both organizations endorse both providers and families sticking to the recommended on-time vaccine schedule and using your opportunities, your checkups when you come to the doctor in the office as a springboard to an honest and open conversation with your pediatrician around all the questions that you have. I, as a pediatrician myself, I can tell you that we welcome the opportunity to have these discussions. They are important, and they're opportunities to build rapport and trust, especially around a topic that can feel really big, like vaccines. Also important for parents to update your pediatrician and share any recent health changes, allergies, or reactions that your child might have had to prior vaccines.
Absolutely. Where can parents go for more information?
I think one of the best resources that I direct parents to is the American Academy of Pediatrics website. The resources are evidence-based, family-friendly, and extensive and accessible. But we all recognize that the amount of information online can be overwhelming. I think it's important to remember that your pediatrician understands your child's individual health history, can walk you through which vaccines are recommended at each age, and can answer questions in a way that are specific to your child. So parents should remember that if you have questions about vaccines, your first and best resource should be your pediatrician.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you for coming on. I thank GlaxoSmithKline for all the great work they do, and we can't wait to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
All right, guys, 1-877-DOC-A-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So thousands of travelers at a major East Coast airport, they say, may have been exposed to measles. This was confirmed in the Baltimore metro area. The unidentified individual passed through customs at the international arrivals area of Baltimore Washington International Thurgood Marshall Airport. This was on April 12th between 7:50 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. And the individual went to a fast med urgent care in the area. They also went to the ER and pediatric emergency department at Sinai Hospital the following days. We don't know much about the individual's age or vaccination status, but anybody who was at that airport at that time is being urged to get checked out because the measles virus can remain in the air for up to 2 hours after an infectious person passes through the area, and patients only need to be exposed for about 15 minutes to acquire it. So the Maryland Department of Health is also urging anybody who might not be vaccinated or partially unvaccinated who have been exposed to watch for symptoms: cough, runny nose, fever, and rash. So a question that people always have is, with these measles outbreaks, how many of them are occurring in unvaccinated and how many are occurring in vaccinated individuals? The question that I have as a medical professional, as a public health official, is we need to know if we need boosters. The MMR that we got at 1 year old of age and 4 years old, roughly we get it between 12 and 15 months, and then 4 and 6 years old. So I kind of remember it as 1 year and 4 years. For those of us that did get MMR vaccinated, there's a lot of questions on do we need boosters? And so, the data is showing that the majority of the individuals who are coming down with measles in these outbreaks are unvaccinated or partially, where they only had a chance to get one vaccine because they didn't turn 4 yet, or they missed a dose. But we are having individuals, like we saw with the outbreak that happened at Disneyland, I think that was back in like 2012, where some vaccinated individuals are coming down with it. And so I know that's a question that I keep getting asked. I don't have the answer to that. I do know that HHS is looking at possibly considering boosters for MMR, because if we are seeing that these strains, and people always say, well, if the strains are brewing, why is that? Is it because of the unvaccinated population? They are partially responsible in that when you have an illness that has a chance to now live and evolve, it can create then drug-resistant strains. I understand parents are overwhelmed. There's a lot of vaccines out there. And I support our vaccine protocol and our vaccine regimen that we have. But I understand parents are a little overwhelmed. I get that, which is like we talked about with the pediatrician we just had on, you want to definitely get your questions answered. RFK Jr. also promised transparency on the pros and cons and the risks and benefits in the studies. So hopefully that website gets up there so you can actually look at the studies yourself and understand the risks and the benefits. But I think the next issue we're looking at is, with the way we were vaccinated back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, do there need to be updates? And, we like to think that we're one and done, But as we see with flu and COVID, it's sometimes not a one and done. And vaccine, the science behind it is fascinating. In fact, it kind of comes from homeopathy, where you fight fire with fire, or you incite your immune system to recognize and be able to fight the pathogen accordingly. So we still have a lot more work to do, but we'll keep you guys posted on these measles outbreaks. And definitely talk to your medical provider about your options. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regenerations. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, Fine Farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Back on the Dr. Dahlia Show, 1-877-Doc-Dolly, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So I lost a colleague to multiple myeloma, a rare and difficult to diagnose blood cancer. A lot of times produces no symptoms in the early stages, and we don't find out about it until it's spread and become more severe. The complex blood cancer disproportionately affects those of African descent, who are twice as likely to be diagnosed with disease, and Black patients are also twice as likely to die from multiple myeloma due to delayed detection and access to care. I am so grateful for Dr. Brandon Blue, assistant member and clinical instructor at the Department of Malignant Hematology at Moffitt Cancer Center, and Tony, who is a multiple myeloma survivor and a Carvicti patient. Dr. Blue, Tony, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this, being able to talk to us about this.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Multiple myeloma. Not easy. Talk to us about what this is and how CAR T therapy works.
Yeah, great question. So I'm Dr. Blue. I am a myeloma expert. I've been working with Johnson & Johnson and Legend Biotech really to discuss my experiences as it comes to treating patients with relapsed refractory multiple myeloma. But as you said, the first question is, well, what is multiple myeloma? And so I want all your listeners and everyone to know that multiple myeloma is a cancer, okay? It's a cancer actually of the bone marrow space. And you say, well, what is the bone marrow and what does it do? Well, the bone marrow is actually inside of our long bones. We have this marrow space that is responsible for making blood cells. Well, unfortunately, you can actually develop a cancer inside of that marrow, and multiple myeloma is one of those cancers of the bone marrow. Well, for a period of time, the treatment for multiple myeloma was very limited. And so we're excited to just kind of talk about this novel treatment, such as CAR T-cell therapy, where we're able to basically take the body's immune system and now be able to fight off the cancer. And Carvicti is one of the options when it comes to multiple myeloma to actually use CAR T and make things better potentially for patients.
Exactly. And a lot of patients need to be their own advocates. They need to actually sometimes bring this up and talk to their medical provider, and oftentimes the patient diagnoses and understands and alerts the medical provider that they're having a problem. So talk to us about how patients can be better advocates for their care.
Yeah, I think by just listening to this show, by listening to this conversation, I think people can actually gain awareness from that, but also have this kind of conversation. So it's one thing to hear about this conversation today, but then also put it into practice. The next time you see your doctor, if you or even your loved one has multiple myeloma, say, hey, I heard about this thing. Is Carvykti the right thing for me? I'd also would recommend for people to maybe visit the website, carvykti.com. CARVYKTI.com, and just say, hey, let me read a little bit more about this. Let me interest myself and kind of see, is this something that I can benefit from? So I would say this starts as a discussion. The patient and the doctor need to both get together and find the right fit.
One thing I tell my medical students is they need to ask for rotations where they're working with a more diverse population. I can't tell you how many times many of us don't train, and we train with more one demographic or another, and then we lose out on identifying and earlier diagnosis, especially in diverse and minority communities. Talk to us about some of those barriers.
Yeah, so unfortunately, multiple myeloma disproportionately affects people of African descent as well as the Hispanic community. So what your medical students or people who might read some of the medical textbooks, they may see someone who is of African ancestry or the Hispanic community, and they don't look like the guys in the medical textbooks. They're much younger, and they may have more advanced disease. So this is important for people to understand. Just because this disease is something that we're trying to understand. Is it a biology issue? Is it a nature issue? Or is this a nurture issue, a product of the environment? We're still trying to figure that out to some degree, but we do know it is disproportionately affecting those communities. And so I do think that you made a great point, and I hope you continue to educate and let our next wave of future oncologists and doctors know about this issue.
Mm-hmm. Tony, you've lived through this, and not easy. Talk to us about your experience.
Yes. When I was first diagnosed with multiple myeloma on September 18th of 2013, I was 39 years old, and my life changed overnight. At that point, I couldn't walk. I couldn't work. I was bedridden. And I had to file for disability. And what made it even harder is that the signs had been there for years. I first noticed blood spots under my tongue back in 2005. Then on September 27th of 2013, I had an unfortunate fall after losing my footing while working with a client. After an ER visit, a follow-up with a neurologist who ordered an MRI, which revealed the multiple fractures and a serious back injury, I ended up back in the ER again and was close to being discharged without answers. It wasn't until someone close to me stepped in and advocated for additional testing that I finally got the answers and the clarity that I needed. And by then, the disease had progressed significantly. I had multiple spinal fractures, kidney failure, and anemia. I was even told I might never return to the fitness industry again, which was devastating. For almost 12 years, I went through multiple treatments, including chemotherapy and a stem cell transplant in 2016, but I relapsed. In May of 2025, I received Carvykti, and that was the turning point for me. The idea of a single infusion with the potential for a really stood out. Since then, I've been doing well, active in my personal life, and continuing my work in the multiple myeloma community. My journey has been about resilience, but also about learning how to advocate for myself every step of the way.
Absolutely. You're so positive too, and you've patients may relapse. What do you tell people, as it pertains to this ebbing and flowing and the progress you're making and what happens with relapses? What's your message to them?
Yes, my message to them would be, A relapse can feel discouraging. I've been there. I've been there multiple times. But it's not the end of the road. There are more options today than ever before. The new treatments continue to evolve. My message is simple. Don't lose hope. Stay encouraged in your care. Have honest conversations with your doctor. And keep advocating for yourself.
Amen.
Every step forward matters. And there is still so much possibility ahead.
Every patient who told me that their doctor didn't listen and they have something deeper wrong, I found what they were talking about. They weren't lying. And if you have a doctor that won't, that won't listen, I mean, you stay the course. And I'm so glad, Tony, you got the care you needed. In the last minute or so, Dr. Blue, Tony, anything else you would like to share with my listeners?
I think the biggest thing that I really want your listeners to kind of take home is that I want them to be not only listeners of this conversation, but doers of this conversation. So to take all this information in and to really have conversations with their loved ones and say, hey, you may have multiple myeloma or you have a family member with multiple myeloma. I heard about this thing called CAR T-cell. I heard about this thing called CARVYKTI. Let's try to see if this is the right thing for you.
Absolutely.
I also want the listeners to try to go to the website. So those would be my big things.
Great. And the website again?
It's CARVYKTI.com, CARDYKTI.com.
Dr. Blue, Tony, God bless you both. Thank you for coming on. We can't wait to have you back.
Thank you. Happy to come back anytime.
All right, guys, don't go away. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did. And just maybe, someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Dr. Dolly Show, 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. A Canadian has been killed as well as 6 Americans who were at the Teotihuacan pyramids in Mexico as a gunman started randomly shooting people. They opened fire at the Mexico Teotihuacan pyramids. It's a popular tourist hotspot. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And according to preliminary information and CNN, a man fired shots at the archaeological site near Mexico City. He killed the Canadian woman as well as Americans. The Canadian woman was killed, 6 Americans wounded, and then he took his own life, according to Mexican security cabinet. Authorities said they seized a firearm, a bladed weapon, and live cartridges at site. The shooter was named by the state of Mexico prosecutor's office as Julio Cesar Hassel Ramirez, a Mexican citizen. The prosecutor said that the preliminary information indicated he acted alone. 13 people were injured during the attack. 8 are still hospitalized as of yesterday. Secretary of Government said in a statement that 4 people had gunshot wounds. 2 others were injured falling. Now, the shooting comes, according to CNN, as Mexico faces scrutiny over public security. They're supposed to be welcoming people for the World Cup. World Cup is going to be in multiple areas, and people are a little bit concerned, especially with cartel activity and these shootings. Mexico thrives on tourism. They need tourism. Cristobal Castaneda Camarillo, Security Secretary of the State of Mexico, said that authorities received word of the shooting at about 11:20 a.m. local times. It was a beautiful day, and it was people enjoying the sights. National Guard personnel arrived 10 minutes later, confronted the shooter. I mean, thank God he only injured that many. I mean, in 10 minutes, there's a lot of time that unfortunately this person could, seconds count. But the aggressor was injured in the leg, and then later at 11:45, he took his own life. So we'll keep you posted. But this was just frightening that something like this could happen. Also in news, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of War, Defense Secretary, is not going to mandate flu shots for the U.S. Service members. In a video posted on X, Pete Hegseth said troops will be free to choose whether they get vaccinated against the flu, and the Pentagon is not going to be requiring the shot. He said the notion that a flu vaccine must be mandatory for every service member everywhere in every circumstance at all times is just overly broad and not rational. Pete Hegseth said the decision to end the flu vaccine mandate is part of the Trump administration efforts to restore freedom and strength to our joint force. He said we're seizing the moment to discard any absurd, overreaching mandates that only weaken our warfighting capabilities. In this case, this includes the universal flu vaccine and the mandate behind it. So it's a memorandum that he signed yesterday, says effective immediately, the annual flu vaccine is voluntary for all active and reserve component service members and civilians working for the Defense Department. So where this is stemming from is the backlash that they got with the COVID vaccine. We kicked out service members who wanted to die for this country, wanted to protect and serve, and we fired them because we discharged them because they didn't want to get a COVID vaccine. And it was, here's my thing. I get vaccines. In fact, I do believe the COVID vaccine saved lives. I think it helped protect me. However, I did have side effects from it. So I'm not getting any boosters in the near future, but that's just me. It's a personal choice. I think for everybody, it should be a personal choice, and they should talk to their medical provider, because if you are at risk for severe COVID, and COVID can be severe, we want to make sure you have protection. But many individuals like the nurses and first responders, they begged to allow a blood test to show that they had antibodies. It wasn't that, take your shot and shove it attitude. It's like, look, I've been working on the front line since the beginning, and you guys hailed me as a hero for being there and exposing my family when we didn't have a vaccine. And being there and working. I have some baseline immunity because I lived through it. Please, for the love of God, take my blood. Learn from it. Look and see what I have. And they wouldn't do it. It was you get the shot or you're fired. And that really turned people away. I mean, we were struggling to recruit. Now, yes, there's other things that also probably have played, factors into, recruiting. Many individuals are watching these, Tunnel to Towers, and God bless Wounded Warriors and Tunnel to Towers for all they do. But you have young people going, I don't want that to happen to me. So they're rethinking, if they're going to enlist. They also, a lot of the different, things that they had to do, like the high heels and some of the woke, they want to join the military They don't want to be checking boxes. And it has dissuaded a lot of people from joining. Not to mention, in the olden days, it was where you get to see the world. You'll get to do things that nobody else got to do. We're going to help you go to college. Well, many individuals now are able to apply for grants and loans. They don't need the military to help them get a college degree. The military will help you, and will help you get. I mean, it's the most wonderful deal out there. But many people say, well, now I don't need the military for that. I'm able to go to college and then get loans, and then maybe get them written off. And so things are changing, and the military has had trouble recruiting. And so, on top of this, apparently, there was a lot of pushback on, do we really have to get flu shots? So the directive states that only reserve troops activated for at least 30 days would be required to receive flu shots, and the Pentagon would no longer pay reservists or members of the National Guard for their time spent getting the vaccine on their own. So I'm still kind of unclear why the reservists still are required. Maybe it's, but Deputy Secretary of Defense Steve Feinberg wrote that the department is going to conserve its resources by requiring seasonal flu vaccine for service members only when doing so most directly contributes to readiness. The Navy and Marine Corps Force Health Protection Command develops and shapes public health for those services, states that seasonal flu vaccine is the most effective control measure to reduce the risk of severe influenza and mission degradation, minimizing the risk of force. The organization warns that because the flu can spread quickly, outbreaks may be widespread and can adversely impact Navy and Marine Corps force readiness and mission execution. They're not wrong. Flu breaking through the barracks, that's an issue. However, when we have a flu vaccine, like, for example, this year might have been, 15 to 20% effective, still provided some efficacy. But to mandate something that people don't want and then it still doesn't provide the proper protection, it's, starting to beg the question, can people make a decision, and then can we be ready in terms of Tamiflu prevention? If somebody does get flu, does any of the barrack members get started on Tamiflu for prevention? We're doing that already, even if you were vaccinated. If you have a family member who has flu, even if you were vaccinated for flu, if you have a household contact, we're going to give you Tamiflu, because the vaccine doesn't protect you 100%. It will protect you to some degree, but not 100%. So there's been an argument going, well, why don't we have Tamiflu and give our members Tamiflu to protect them? Because even if they are vaccinated, they need that anyway. So it's interesting. We'll see. People always ask how many active duty and reserve troops left the military as a result of the COVID-19 vaccine. According to CBS News, it was, and I apologize, I have the number here, 8,700 active duty and reserve troops, voluntarily or involuntarily, left the military because of the COVID vaccine. The mandate was rescinded in 2023. Biden had to rescind it by 2023. But at the time, 2021, active members and reserve troops had to get it or they were out. So many left. 8,700. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. So Trump comes into power, signs executive order making reinstatement available to troops who were discharged for refusing the COVID vaccine. 1-877-Doc-Dolly. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.